Picture this scenario. Imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning not to the smell of fresh coffee, but to the pervasive, microscopic dust that has somehow colonized every single surface in your home. You step carefully around exposed subfloors, past the taped-off disaster zone that used to be your primary bathroom, now just a pile of demolition debris awaiting a dumpster that costs too much and took forever to schedule. This was supposed to be a simple refresh, a quick modernization project lasting maybe 6 weeks, budgeted conservatively at $60,000. That was 3 months and $85,000 ago, and the fixtures are still sitting in boxes. Now your life is an exercise in managed chaos. You are eating takeout food that you despise, washing dishes in a laundry sink, and constantly arguing with a contractor who seems to speak only in riddles and endlessly proliferating change orders.
My name is Robie, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible mathematical equations that govern our financial behavior. I obsess over the silent, systemic traps that look exactly like smart investment opportunities.
I am here to tell you that your home renovation project is not an investment. It is rarely even justifiable maintenance. It is, almost universally, a financial black hole engineered by systemic optimism bias and the lethal sunk cost fallacy.
We are going to dissect the mathematical inevitability of renovation cost overruns. We are going to expose the hidden costs and the psychological levers that ensure you perpetually chase a moving target of perfection and liquidity failure.
We must understand that home improvement is less about improving the objective valuation of the home and far more about liquidating your accessible wealth into what I call dead equity, cash you can never practically recover efficiently. The primary psychological mechanism at play here is known as the anchor and adjustment heuristic, coupled dangerously with the Diderot effect, which is a fascinating and destructive consumerist spiral designed to empty your accounts. You anchor your financial expectations to the initial low bid or the conservative estimate presented by the contractor or the financial advisor. This anchor sets a comfortable but fictional initial boundary for the project.
Then, the contractor, or the physical reality of the old structure, forces rapid adjustments. The plumbing is worse than expected. The electrical needs a full upgrade to meet modern codes and support your high-end appliances.
These small, seemingly justifiable adjustments slowly pull you away from the initial anchor until the final cost bears no resemblance whatsoever to the starting figure. You are psychologically committed now, regardless of the math. The Diderot effect ensures this painful escalation continues even after the heavy structure is done. New quartz countertops look ridiculous next to your 30-year-old cabinets. New cabinets demand expensive integrated appliances. A new refrigerator necessitates tearing out the pantry layout to accommodate the wider frame. Every single improvement creates a vacuum, demanding a corresponding higher-tier improvement next to it, draining your precious liquidity entirely. We need to talk about vampire costs. These are the insidious, ancillary expenses that suck the lifeblood out of your budget without ever appearing on the mainline item for materials or labor, often accumulating silently in the background. Think permit fees, temporary housing during structural work, the cost of increased utility usage because of equipment running, disposal fees for debris, and the sheer interest accumulation if you used a home equity line of credit or HELOC. These costs, often totaling 15 to 20% of the hard construction costs, are rarely factored into the original investment thesis. They are the unseen friction and financial drag that guarantees profound underperformance. Then there is dead equity. If you spend $100,000 on a new kitchen, the perceived resale value increase in the best-case scenario is often only $60,000, even in a very aggressive housing market. That $40,000 difference is dead equity. It is sunk cash that serves only the purpose of your immediate subjective enjoyment, not financial return. It is a massive consumption cost disguised cunningly as a capital improvement. The only renovations that approach 100% return are strictly structural necessities, such as fixing a severely leaky foundation or replacing a completely destroyed, failing roof
that poses immediate risk to the dwelling. Aesthetic upgrades rarely break 70% return on investment. Why? Because everyone assumes they have better taste than the next buyer, and highly customized spaces are often deeply polarizing liabilities upon resale.
Your specialized, high-gloss, ultra-modern Italian kitchen might be a massive liability to a future buyer who prefers the cozy aesthetic of farmhouse chic, forcing them to price the removal of your choices into their offer.
You have spent serious capital making your home incredibly specific to you, which simultaneously makes it incredibly specific to no one else on the mass market. Specificity in finance is almost always the enemy of maximized valuation.
The narrative that renovations equals guaranteed wealth creation is mostly driven by opportunistic reality television and the aggressive, non-stop marketing of the entire supply chain industry, desperate to move high-margin product.
These highly edited shows portray a magical, quick turnaround where complexity is solved in a 30-second montage sequence. This creates a deeply misleading and financially destructive mental model for the consumer homeowner.
We forget the painful historical lesson of the 2000s housing bubble, where easy credit fueled massive, speculative renovation spending based on equity gains that vanished. When the credit tightened, those renovations proved worthless investments.
People consistently overestimate the market's true appreciation for high-end quality finishing. A buyer rarely pays substantially more for Calicut marble versus high-grade quartz, yet the cost difference to you is exponential capital. You are buying marginal utility at an exponential price point. This is the definition of poor capital allocation, a financial misstep. You gain very little extra satisfaction for a huge jump in required financial outlay.
It creates a deadly liquidity trap. You poured your accessible cash and borrowing power into fixed, non-liquid assets that are hard to liquidate quickly or efficiently, rendering you cash poor but ostensibly marble rich. If a genuine financial emergency arises, you cannot efficiently sell 2 linear feet of expensive cabinetry to cover a sudden hospital bill or an unexpected layoff. The liquidity is gone, trapped behind drywall and high-end fixtures.
We must confront the psychological trap of the hedonic treadmill. You believe this perfect, glossy, customized kitchen will finally bring permanent contentment and stop the relentless craving for more and better things.
It absolutely will not. For a brief period, perhaps 6 months, you will enjoy the novelty and the clean lines. Then the new kitchen simply becomes the baseline, and your focus shifts immediately to the next perceived imperfection, perhaps the dark hallway.
This is the optimization fallacy. We are constantly seeking the optimal living environment, only to realize that optimization is an unending, expensive pursuit, a debilitating psychological game with absolutely no finish line.
The stress of the renovation itself, the constant dust, the invasive noise, the displaced living arrangements, causes cortisol levels to spike dangerously. Home is supposed to be a sanctuary, but during renovation, it becomes a source of extreme, draining conflict.
The hidden cost of renovation is not just the dollars leaving your accounts. It is the cost in severe mental health strain, in relationship stress, and in lost productivity due to distraction and constant decision fatigue related to grout colors and faucet heights.
You are essentially paying a substantial financial premium to voluntarily introduce extreme and unnecessary stress into your life, justifying it with the vague promise of future, permanent happiness that rarely ever materializes fully.
The contractors are not necessarily malicious, but their core business model relies entirely on managing your expectations downward while managing the scope creep upward. They profit substantially from your indecision and design volatility.
When faced with an unexpected structural problem, the cost presented always seems mathematically precise and urgent, designed to sound like the absolute minimum needed, creating immediate compliance through pure fear of catastrophe. The prevailing myth of the contractor industry is that they are merely passive service providers fulfilling a request. In reality, they are expert expectation managers, utilizing scarcity and urgency to drive rapid, expensive decision-making.
They know that once the project is underway, your tolerance for further financial pain is higher than your tolerance for structural ambiguity or project delay.
creating a prime environment for exponential cost overruns and scope creep.
This is the psychological leveraging of homeowner vulnerability. Your overwhelming desire for project completion overrides your fiduciary responsibility to your own balance sheet. You are paying a premium for speed and temporary stress reduction.
Consider the history of the kitchen renovation boom in post-war America. It was brilliantly catalyzed by targeted advertising campaigns associating stainless steel and integrated appliances with status, stability, and American success. The primary goal was not superior function, which was often only marginally better, but societal signaling. The kitchen became the primary status indicator of the rising middle class, displacing the parlor as the central stage for displaying accumulated wealth.
This legacy continues strongly today. We renovate not primarily for ourselves, but for the anticipated judgment of our social circle, making the renovation a high-cost performance piece driven by comparison rather than actual utility maximization.
When you look closely at the glossy ROI charts published by industry marketing groups, notice the subtle, dangerous framing. They often use gross return percentages without accurately netting out the critical opportunity cost of that locked capital.
If your $100,000 had simply been invested in a low-cost diversified index fund for the 18 months your renovation consumed, the compounding returns would often eclipse the net gain from the physical upgrade.
You sacrificed potential exponential growth from marginal, finite, consumption-based appreciation in a fixed asset. This is the opportunity cost of dead equity, a hidden transaction fee you must calculate precisely to avoid financial failure.
Think of the compounding interest lost, the time spent managing the project instead of generating income, and the significant premium you pay for accelerated timelines. All these factors contribute to the negative drag on the real return calculation.
The industry also masterfully employs the concept of future-proofing. You are told you must upgrade systems drastically to meet potential future regulatory codes or buyer expectations that may never actually materialize in your tenure.
This is preventative spending, entirely driven by fear. Fear of obsolescence, fear of regret, and the fear of being deemed financially irresponsible by a future inspector or potential buyer. It is a psychological manipulation of risk aversion.
We are told that if we use the highest grade soundproofing or the most efficient HVAC system available, we are securing future financial gains. But those systems depreciate just like everything else, and often faster than the main structure itself.
The HVAC system you install today will likely be obsolete or require expensive, proprietary maintenance long before you realize the supposed resale premium for its energy efficiency rating. It is fundamentally a technological liquidity trap. Furthermore, consider the severe emotional tax of managing subcontractors and complex trades. The general contractor often subtly shifts the risk and liability down the chain, leaving the homeowner to navigate disputes between tradespeople. This management burden is effectively unpaid labor. If you monetize the hours spent researching materials, coordinating erratic schedules, and resolving conflicts, the true cost of your entire renovation spikes dramatically higher than the bill.
This unpaid labor further solidifies the dead equity status of the investment. You are performing free, uncompensated work to consume a high-end product, rather than investing that valuable time into strategic wealth creation efforts.
To counteract this, impose a hard mathematical constraint up front, before the first hammer swings. Decide on the maximum dollar amount you are willing to spend for pure, subjective consumption, say $20,000, and ring-fence it tightly.
Anything spent beyond that specific consumption budget must yield a demonstrable, reliable ROI of 80% or higher, verified by multiple objective appraisals, not just speculative, glossy market reports from industry insiders.
If it does not meet that strict 80% hurdle rate, the specific renovation does not happen. This shifts the focus from desire management to disciplined fiduciary management, which is the only way to retain lasting financial control.
The general market values core functionality and excellent location far more than bespoke, expensive finishing materials. A clean, functioning, updated but not luxurious home in a prime location always financially outperforms a magazine-worthy palace in a poor location.
Renovation spending should ruthlessly prioritize the essentials that prevent catastrophic failure: roofing integrity, foundation stability, and plumbing health. Everything else is discretionary spending, masked cleverly as mandatory improvement. When the contractor inevitably brings the first change order, treat it as a brand new negotiation entirely. Do not simply adjust the existing budget upward automatically. Reevaluate the necessity as if you were starting the whole project fresh.
The psychological power of sunk cost strongly compels you to say yes to the change order, regardless of the cost. You feel you are too far in to stop now, but stopping a bad deal is always financially superior to sinking more capital into a losing proposition. Remember that the renovation industry, like all powerful industries, thrives on perpetual motion and consumer uncertainty. They need you to believe your home is perpetually substandard and requires constant capital injection to maintain relevance or status. This narrative is the foundational lie of modern home ownership. It traps you in a cycle of debt and constant financial drainage, severely preventing true capital accumulation in high-growth liquid assets that appreciate efficiently. We must consciously decouple our emotional self-worth from the appearance of our primary residence. Your net worth is not determined by your backsplash material, but by your diversified portfolio performance and compounding returns. Resist the urge to participate in the hidden renovation arms race that happens subtly among neighbors and peers in your community. Let their overspending be their liquidity trap. Focus solely on your own mathematical inevitability toward financial independence. A fully paid-off mortgage and a robust, diversified investment account are far more sophisticated and effective status symbols than any custom-built walk-in closet or imported Italian tile that you will inevitably tire of within 2 years. Do not mistake consumption for investment. A home renovation is consumption at extreme scale, often leveraging future earnings against a fixed asset that rarely returns the favor. Escape the destructive consumption fallacy immediately. The ultimate financial goal is not aesthetic perfection. The goal is maximized utility at minimum cost, allowing the surplus capital to work for you, accumulating tax-efficient growth in the financial markets, not sitting inertly in grout lines. Let us return to the invisible equation. Renovation, R, equals consumption, C, plus stress, S, minus opportunity cost, OC. When OC is high, R is mathematically proven to be a financial failure, regardless of the short-term aesthetic outcome you enjoy.
Be cold, be calculating, and prioritize true liquidity above all else. If you absolutely must renovate, treat the budget with the same ruthless precision you would use when underwriting a major, multi-million-dollar commercial bond offering.
Do not let feelings of inadequacy or the overwhelming pressure of aspirational design catalogs drive your critical capital allocation decisions. The invisible equation demands adherence to rational economic principles, not aspirational design fantasies. My final and most critical warning on this topic relates to the financing vehicle itself. Using a HELOC or refinancing cash-out equity for renovation is often the riskiest move, leveraging fixed debt against uncertain consumption gains. You are paying compounded interest on a rapidly depreciating aesthetic asset. This leverage maximizes the mathematical failure of the renovation project by increasing the fixed carrying costs dramatically and permanently over time.
Instead, save the cash first and fully fund the project before scheduling. If you cannot pay cash for the renovation, you simply cannot afford the renovation right now. Period. Taking on debt for consumption is the ultimate liquidity trap that feeds vampire costs.
The financial security derived from having zero consumer debt and high accessible liquidity outweighs the marginal psychological benefit of a brand new debt-financed master bathroom every single time. This is not subjective analysis. It is mathematical inevitability. It is the invisible equation of disciplined wealth building versus the systemic drain of lifestyle consumption engineered by the trillion-dollar renovation industry. You must choose wisely. If this deep analysis of the anchor and adjustment heuristic and the financial danger of debt equity has provided you with clarity on your necessary next steps toward financial freedom, then my critical work here is temporarily done.
Smash that like button right now if you are committed to choosing liquidity over luxury in your home spending going forward. Subscribe for financial sanity and to understand the unseen psychological traps that steal your future wealth and peace. Tell me in the comments section below what specific renovation cost or scope creep you regret the most. Let us quantify the true collective weight of this financial black hole and help others escape the same destructive consumption spiral.